Galactic Park, Predators on Display. Chapter 1, Arrival at Galactic Park. The shuttle's descent rattled the cabin, neon light from the dome flickering across the passengers' faces. A boy pressed his nose to the glass. "Look, Mom, that one has 6 heads," he shouted, pointing at a holographic billboard where a monstrous creature roared in slow motion. His mother smiled nervously. "It's just an advertisement, honey. The real ones are behind cages." The shuttle touched down with a hiss, and the doors slid open. A wave of sound greeted the tourists, vendors hawking cosmic snacks, holographic mascots bouncing in the air, and the distant roar of something very much alive. "Welcome to Galactic Park," cried a guide in a shimmering silver uniform. Her voice carried through hidden speakers, cheerful and rehearsed. "You are about to witness the greatest collection of alien wonders ever assembled under one dome." The crowd surged forward, spilling into the plaza. Towering statues of alien beasts loomed overhead, their eyes glowing with artificial light. Children tugged at their parents' sleeves, begging to see the rides. Couples posed for holo pictures beside the statues, while thrill-seekers scanned the park map for the most dangerous attractions. A group of teenagers laughed as they passed a containment zone where a reptilian predator slammed against its force field. "Bet it's all staged," one scoffed. "They probably drug them so they look scary." The creature's claws screeched against the barrier, and the teen's laughter faltered. Meanwhile, a businessman adjusted his tie, muttering into his wrist comb. "Yes, I'm here. Corporate retreat. Don't worry, it's safe. They wouldn't let us in if it wasn't." But not everyone was convinced. A janitor leaned on his mop near the docking bay, watching the crowd with weary eyes. "Every year they bring in new beasts," he muttered to a colleague. "Every year something goes wrong. You'll see." The colleague shrugged. "Doesn't matter, as long as the tourists keep paying." Beyond the spectacle, in the dim-lit corridors of Sector 9, the Sleeth observed silently. Their translucent skin shimmered faintly, their luminous eyes unblinking. Unlike the other creatures, they did not roar or thrash. They simply watched. One Slith tilted its head, studying the tourists as they laughed and pointed. Its gaze lingered on the security guards, noting their weapons, their routines, their blind spots. The Slith did not smile. It did not need to. The plan was already in motion. Chapter 2, Wonders Under the Dome. The plaza funneled tourists into the heart of the park, where the dome's artificial sky shimmered with shifting colors. Sunrise one moment, starlight the next. The illusion was seamless, designed to make visitors forget they were trapped inside a colossal bubble. A guide raised her arms dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the biomes of Galactic Park. Each enclosure is a living recreation of alien worlds, brought here for your enjoyment." The crowd gasped as the first biome opened before them. A frozen tundra, its icy plains stretching beneath a ceiling of swirling auroras. Massive creatures lumbered across the snow, their tusks glowing faintly. Children squealed, pressing against the transparent barrier. "Are they dangerous?" one boy asked. "Only if you step inside," the guide replied with a rehearsed laugh. Next came the lava pits of Draconis. Roller coasters twisted above rivers of molten rock, while winged beasts shrieked from perches. Tourists snapped holo pictures, their faces lit by the fiery glow. A teenager whispered to his friend, "Bet they're animatronics." The beast suddenly spat a stream of fire against its barrier, and the teen stumbled back, pale. The jungle biome was alive with sound, chirps, growls, and the rustle of unseen predators. A holographic mascot danced at the entrance, urging tourists to step into the wild. Few dared. But the most unsettling attraction was Sector 9. Unlike the other zones, it was quiet. Inside sat the Slythe, humanoid in shape, but eerily still. Their translucent skin shimmered faintly, their luminous eyes fixed on the crowd. A little girl tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, why don't they move?" "They're harmless," the father said, though his voice wavered. "Just shy, I guess." The Slythe did not blink. They studied the tourists with unnerving focus, their silence more terrifying than any roar. Nearby, a park technician frowned at his console. "Sector 9's readings are strange," he muttered. "No aggression spikes, no stress indicators. It's like they're waiting for something." His supervisor waved him off. "They're the easiest attraction we've got. Don't waste time worrying." The technician hesitated, watching the Slythe's unblinking eyes. For a moment he thought he felt something, like a whisper in his mind. He shook his head, dismissing it as fatigue. The crowd moved on, laughing and pointing at other creatures. But in the silence of Sector 9, the Slith continued to watch. Their plan was unfolding, and no one suspected a thing. Chapter 3. The Intelligent Species. Sector 9 was silent. Unlike the other biomes, there were no roars, no shrieks, no holographic mascots dancing to distract the crowd. Only the Sleeth sat in their enclosure, motionless, their translucent skin shimmering faintly under the dome's artificial light. Tourists lingered at the barrier, unsettled by the stillness. "Are they even alive?" a teenager whispered. "They're breathing," his friend replied, pointing at the faint rise and fall of a chest. "Barely." The guide forced a smile. "The Slythe are one of our most mysterious specimens. Passive, non-aggressive, and perfectly safe for viewing. They've never once attempted to breach containment." The crowd moved on, but a few stayed behind, drawn by the eerie calm. A little girl pressed her hands against the barrier. One of the Slythe tilted its head, luminous eyes locking onto hers. She gasped, stumbling back. "Daddy, it looked at me," her father chuckled nervously. "It's just curious, sweetheart." But the Slythe's gaze lingered long after the family left. Inside their minds, the Slythe spoke without words. Telepathic whispers rippled through the group, weaving a plan that had been years in the making. "The humans are blind. They think us harmless. Their arrogance will be their undoing." They had allowed themselves to be captured, knowing Galactic Park would gather species from across the galaxy. The dome was not a prison. It was an arsenal. Every predator, every beast, every creature was a weapon waiting to be unleashed. One Slythe extended its hand toward the containment grid. The barrier hummed faintly, responding to its touch. The Slythe smiled, not with lips, but with thought. "Tonight we open the cages." Elsewhere in the park, a technician frowned at his console. Sector 9's readings were now normal. But the technician couldn't shake the feeling. He glanced at the Slythe one last time, and for a moment he thought he heard something. A whisper in his mind, faint but undeniable. "We see you." He shivered, closing the console. The Slythe sat in silence once more, their luminous eyes unblinking. The tourists saw only stillness. The staff saw only profit. But beneath the dome, the Slythe saw opportunity. Chapter 4. The Escape. It began with a flicker. At first, tourists thought it was part of the show, the containment grids pulsing with light, the hum of energy rising in pitch. Children clapped, expecting fireworks. But the technicians knew better. Warning icons flashed across their consoles, red alarms blooming like wounds. "Sector 9 just spiked," one shouted. "Impossible," his supervisor snapped. "Those things don't move." "They're moving now." Inside the enclosure, the Slythe stood in unison. Their luminous eyes glowed brighter, their hands pressed against the barrier. A ripple of energy surged outward, cascading through the park's systems. Locks disengaged, doors slid open. The first cage to fail was the tundra biome. A tusked beast bellowed, charging through the snow and smashing into the transparent wall. Tourists screamed as the barrier shattered, shards of reinforced glass raining down. Then the lava pits erupted. Winged predators soared into the dome, shrieking as they dove toward the crowd. Roller coasters screeched to a halt mid-loop, passengers dangling upside down as creatures tore through the tracks. The jungle biome followed, its predators slinking into the pathways, eyes gleaming in the artificial twilight. Panic spread like fire. "Run!" a father shouted, dragging his children toward the shuttle bay. "The exits are sealed!" a security guard yelled, firing his stun rifle at a charging beast. The shot barely slowed it. Tourists trampled one another in their desperation to escape. The dome's speakers blared emergency warnings, but the words were drowned out by roars and screams. In the chaos, the Slythe moved unseen. While the beasts rampaged, the Slythe slipped through the shadows, orchestrating the distraction. Their telepathic whispers guided the creatures, nudging them toward choke points, herding tourists into panic. The humans scatter. Their defenses crumble. "Now we strike." One Slythe reached the central console, its fingers dancing across controls it had studied for weeks. With a single command, it unleashed every remaining lock. The dome became a battlefield. Above, the artificial sky flickered. The illusion of sunrise collapsed into darkness. For the first time, tourists saw the dome for what it was, a cage, and now the cage was broken. Chapter 5: Chaos Among the Tourists. The dome was no longer a playground. It was a trap. Tourists scattered in every direction as the unleashed creatures surged through the pathways. Families clutched children, thrill-seekers dropped their holocams, and vendors abandoned carts of glowing snacks that were trampled underfoot. The air was filled with screams, roars, and the crackle of failing containment grids. A father dragged his son toward the shuttle bay. "This way, hurry!" But the bay doors slammed shut, locking with a hiss. A holographic mascot flickered overhead, its cheerful voice now grotesque against the chaos. "Stay calm. Galactic Park is safe for all ages." The boy sobbed. "Dad, it's lying." Security forces tried to rally. Stun rifles fired, beams of light cutting through the smoke, but the beasts were too many. A tusked predator barreled through a squad, tossing guards aside like dolls. Winged creatures swooped down, talons raking across the crowd. "Fall back," a commander shouted. "Protect the civilians." But civilians were everywhere, panicked and unpredictable. Some fought back with scavenged weapons, metal poles, broken glass, even discarded food. Others froze, paralyzed by terror, only to be dragged down by the creatures. In the chaos, the Slythe moved unseen. Their telepathic whispers rippled through the dome, guiding the beasts like conductors of a symphony. "Drive them to the exits. Seal the doors. Let them feel the cage." Tourists who survived the first wave began to realize the truth. The creatures weren't rampaging at random. They were herding the humans, pushing them into choke points, cutting off escape routes. A group of teenagers huddled behind a collapsed kiosk. "This isn't an accident," one whispered. "They're controlling them." "Who?" another asked, trembling. The first pointed toward Sector 9. "Those things, the quiet ones." Meanwhile, the dome itself began to fail. Lights flickered, roller coasters hung frozen mid-loop, and the artificial sky glitched between sunrise and starlight. The illusion of safety was gone. A mother clutched her daughter, whispering, "Don't look at them. Don't let them see you." But the Slythe's luminous eyes scanned the crowd, unblinking, calculating. By the time the alarms blared, containment breach, total failure, the tourists understood. Galactic Park was no longer an amusement. It was a hunting ground, and the humans were prey. Chapter 6: The Alien Plan Revealed. The chaos was total. Tourists screamed as beasts tore through the pathways, security forces fired blindly, and the dome's artificial sky flickered between sunrise and starlight. But amid the pandemonium, the Slythe moved with purpose. They slipped through shadows, their luminous eyes glowing like lanterns in the smoke. While humans fought for survival, the Slythe converged on the central control hub, a towering console at the heart of the park, pulsing with energy. A technician stumbled into the hub, clutching a bleeding arm. "What's happening? Who opened the cages?" The Slythe leader tilted its head, translucent skin shimmering. Without a word, it reached out, pressing its hand against the console. The technician's eyes widened as the system obeyed the alien touch. "That's impossible. You're not supposed to—" The Slythe's gaze locked onto him. A whisper filled his mind, cold and absolute. "We are not beasts. We are conquerors." The technician collapsed, clutching his head, his scream drowned by the roar of the creatures outside. The Slythe leader turned to its kin. "The humans are distracted. Their defenses crumble. Now we call the fleet." With a single command, the console transmitted a signal beyond Earth's orbit. Invisible waves rippled through the dome, piercing the atmosphere, racing into the void. Far above, in the silence of space, ships stirred. Dark silhouettes shifted against the stars, engines igniting. The Slythe fleet had been waiting, hidden beyond the solar system, listening for this moment. Meanwhile, survivors in the park began to realize the truth. A group of tourists huddled behind a collapsed ride, watching the Slythe at the console. "They're not prisoners," one whispered. "They're controlling everything." "They planned this," another said, voice trembling. "The creatures, the chaos, it's all a distraction." A security officer raised his rifle. "If they're sending a signal, we have to stop them." He charged forward, firing at the console. But the Slythe raised their hands, and the bullets froze mid-air, suspended in shimmering light. The officer's scream was cut short as the Slythe hurled him backward with a telepathic blast. The console pulsed brighter, its screens filled with alien glyphs. The Slythe leader's voice echoed in the minds of every survivor. "Your world is ours. Galactic Park was only the beginning." Chapter 7. The Battle for Survival. The dome was a war zone. Tourists huddled behind overturned kiosks, clutching children and scavenged weapons. Security forces regrouped near the central plaza, their uniforms torn, their rifles nearly drained of power. The air was thick with smoke, screams, and the stench of alien beasts. "Hold the line," a commander barked, rallying what remained of his squad. "If they reach the control hub, it's over." But the Slythe were already there, luminous eyes glowing as they directed the chaos. Their telepathic whispers rippled through the dome, guiding predators toward choke points, driving humans into corners. A group of survivors fought their way through the carnage. A mother wielded a broken metal pole, striking at a winged creature that swooped too close. Beside her, a teenager hurled bottles of neon soda, the sticky liquid splattering across a predator's eyes. "We have to shut down the console," the mother shouted. "How?" the teen cried. "They're controlling it. Then we take it back." Security forces launched a desperate counterattack. Stun rifles fired in unison, beams of light cutting through the smoke. A tusked beast collapsed, thrashing wildly before going still. Tourists cheered, hope flickering for the first time. But the Slythe retaliated. With a wave of their hands, bullets froze mid-air, rifles jammed, and soldiers were hurled backward by invisible force. The crowd's cheers turned to screams once more. In the chaos, a technician crawled toward the console, clutching a data spike. His hands trembled as he jammed it into the system. "Come on, override, come on." The console flickered, alien glyphs clashing with human code. For a moment, the Slythe faltered, their telepathic control disrupted. Beasts staggered, confused, their rampage slowing. Now, the commander shouted. Push forward. Humans surged, striking back with everything they had, stun rifles, scavenged weapons, sheer desperation. For a heartbeat, survival seemed possible. But the Slythe leader stepped forward, eyes blazing. You cannot stop us. Your world is already ours. With a single gesture, the console roared back to life. The beasts rallied, the dome trembled, and the technician was thrown against the wall, lifeless. The human's brief hope shattered. The battle raged on, but the truth was clear. This was no longer about survival inside the dome. The Slythe signal had already been sent. Their fleet was coming. Galactic Park was only the first battlefield. Chapter 8: Aftermath and Invasion. By dawn, the dome lay in ruins. Smoke curled upward, staining the artificial sky, which flickered between broken sunrise and static starlight. The once pristine pathways of Galactic Park were littered with shattered kiosks, overturned rides, and the bodies of creatures and humans alike. Survivors staggered through the wreckage, their faces pale, their clothes torn. A mother carried her daughter, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. A security officer limped across the plaza, rifle dragging uselessly at his side. Vendors sat in shock beside their ruined carts, staring at the neon snacks that glowed faintly in the ash. The holographic mascot flickered one last time, its cheerful voice warped and broken. Thank you for visiting Galactic Park. Please come again. Then it died, leaving only silence. In the shadows of Sector 9, the Slythe were gone. No bodies, no traces, only the echo of their telepathic whispers. Survivors whispered rumors that the Slythe had vanished into the night, that they had slipped through hidden exits, that they had never been prisoners at all. But the truth was worse. High above Earth, faint glimmers marked the arrival of ships. Dark silhouettes shifted against the stars, engines igniting with a hum that resonated across the atmosphere. The Slythe fleet had heard the signal. A technician, bloodied but alive, stared upward through the fractured dome. They're coming, he whispered. This wasn't the invasion, this was the rehearsal. The survivors looked to the sky, their hope collapsing into dread. Galactic Park had been the first strike, a distraction, a test. The real war was about to begin. And as the Slythe fleet descended, Earth realized too late. The amusement park had never been entertainment. It had been a staging ground. The invasion had begun. Epilogue: The Silent Watchers. The Slythe fleet surged toward Earth, dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. Engines burned, weapons primed, their invasion assured. On the ruined surface below, survivors cowered, watching the sky with dread. But far beyond the dome, in the cold silence of space, something stirred. For centuries, another species had lain dormant, hidden in the asteroid belts, buried within derelict ships, cloaked in silence. They were not captives nor conquerors. They were watchers, patient, waiting. The Slythe never suspected. As the fleet crossed the outer orbit, the void erupted. From the shadows of darkness, ships emerged, sleek, angular, bristling with weapons unknown to human science. Energy lances tore through Slythe hulls, shredding their formations before they could react. The Slythe's telepathic cries echoed across the void, confusion and rage mingling with fear. One by one, their ships ignited, fragments scattering like burning stars. On Earth, survivors looked upward, expecting doom. Instead, they saw the sky flare with explosions, silent blossoms of fire as the Slythe fleet was annihilated. A child pointed at the heavens. They're saving us. But no one knew who they were. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The Slythe fleet was gone, reduced to wreckage drifting in silence. The mysterious species vanished back into the void, leaving no signal, no message, no trace. Only questions. The survivors of Galactic Park staggered into the dawn, haunted by two truths. The Slythe had been defeated, but Earth was not alone. Somewhere in the darkness, another species watched. Not enemies, not allies, something else entirely. And they had chosen this moment to reveal themselves. But an old Earth Francis Bacon quote haunted humanity's survivors. The remedy is worse than the disease. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.